Hello everyone, welcome to Rainmakers Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and I've got with me today Carl Bjerke. Carl is the Chief Revenue Officer for Goode Cyber Security. Carl's down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Carl, welcome to the program. Great to have you.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, even though I am remote in beautiful Charlotte. Yes.
Yeah, good to see you, man. So tell us a little bit about Goode Cyber Security, what you do and how you help clients, and what makes you guys a little different from some of the other cybersecurity companies out there.
Sure. So first and foremost, I think one of the things that really makes us different is we're not necessarily focused on new technology. Our competence is really in coming in and giving second opinions to provide truth in IT, right? So that is a little bit different than a lot of approaches which are very focused on replacing and displacing technology that current customers have. That's not our approach at all. We really want to go in, we ask a lot of tough questions that have tough answers, not just related to the products that are in use, but the process and the people. And really what that allows us to do is to give a true and accurate overview of the company's cyber resiliency that we can then basically bring forth to, in most cases, owners and C-level executives so that they have a true understanding of what their cyber resiliency posture actually looks like.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about this the other day. You know, one of the things that makes a company like Goode Cyber Security so effective is that you almost have to think like the bad guys, like the bad actors. And you know, when you go to recruit people and engineers and IT folks, what are you looking for? What kinds of what's the mentality of some of the people that you're attracting to the organization?
Yeah, and that's a really great question, right? Because a lot of people think that cybersecurity is all about the technology. But like we talked about yesterday, it's really much more encompassing than that, because there are other ways that people can gain control of your network, gain control of your digital assets, and quite frankly, just make a mess of things by stealing information. And so the people that do best in our industry are ones that are not just technology focused. And I think you said it best. You know, you have to be able to think a little bit like a criminal, right?
Yeah.
And so one example that I would give is, you know, we've all seen QR barcodes that become very popular at restaurants since COVID rolled out, right? No more physical menus. This is how you view the menu.
Yep.
Well, that QR barcode, you know, and 99 out of 100 times is very legitimate, but there's nothing to stop a bad actor, quite frankly, from creating their own version of your website that looks very real down to the T.
Yep.
At which point people scan that barcode in a trusting location in the restaurant that you happen to be in or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden they're brought to a site where their information can be compromised. And, you know, one thing is to think about a restaurant. That's a far more damaging event to happen if, for example, you lease or rent apartments, right? As we've made this move towards touchless interactions, more and more of us are comfortable taking our phones out, scanning that code and following the process. And so that's just one of the ways that we really need to think of what kind of exposure do companies have to these criminals, not just cyber criminals, you know, to make sure that they're aware of the ways that people can, in fact, steal information, data, and breach. And obviously, a thing, again, if you were to run an apartment company and you had a lot of people logging into this virtual site, applying for applications, giving deposits, that's not you. What's the damage to that, right? It's extensive.
Yeah.
And in order to be aware of something like that, quite frankly, you would need to train your staff. And it's not just an IT thing as your staff is walking around the property. Hey, is this supposed to be here, right? It's, you know, that see something, say something type of mentality so that IT is not segregated from the rest of the organization.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing too. You know, a lot of people think that it's all about encrypted data or non-encrypted data that you can steal. But, you know, you and I talked about this the other day that, you know, it could be a paper transaction that, right, that gets people into trouble, whether it could be a direct mail piece, right?
Yeah, that which is old is new again, right? I mean, think about all of the companies that are paying their bills. So where I live here in the Carolinas, Duke Energy is our power provider primarily. Right. Well, I don't have to breach your network. I can basically go down to local Kinko's, print up a bunch of fake looking bills saying that we've updated our account information, send it to 10,000 local businesses, and some of them are going to open that letter, update their information, and lo and behold, the funds are being withdrawn from your account and being distributed to a place where they're not supposed to be. And so, again, we refer to it as cybersecurity, but really it's much more than that.
Yeah. Carl, what drove you to this point in your career? What exactly is it that drives you day by day, and why do you love what you're doing? What's the passion behind doing what you do?
Yeah, so I've always been a little bit of a nerd, and I love technology. But at the same time, I'm an extroverted guy, and I like talking to people. And the thing in my career, I've worked with a lot of hardware, a lot of software as a service. And those are very good, pinpoint solutions that solve a specific problem. What really drew me to cybersecurity, and specifically working with Michael Goode at Goode Cyber Security, is the fact that it's a much more holistic picture, right? Just like we talked about, part of it is the technology evaluation. How do we make it operate as efficiently as possible? But it's really being able to take some of those other skills and look at the complete picture to how we help someone provide resiliency. And it's very fulfilling because you have different types of conversations, right? Technology is great. Speeds and feeds are fun if you're into that stuff. But it's, quite frankly, much more rewarding to be able to talk about a holistic approach, which isn't just segregated into technology.
Yeah. Listen, man, I'm digging the hairdo. What's up with that? That's not something you've always done, is it?
I'm sorry, one more time?
I said that's not something you've always done, is it?
I've had it for years. And look, you have been to a million trade shows just like I have, right?
Yep.
And at the end of the day, there's something to be said for being memorable.
Right.
And in my specific case, when I go to trade shows, I always try to take a picture with people that I'm talking to. And so when I send my follow-up to them, the red mohawk kind of sticks out in the crowd. It's easier to make that connection because people are being there's an onslaught of people wanting to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so how do you stick out of the crowd? How do you be remembered? Part of that is certainly confidence in the conversations that you have, but red mohawk is a pretty good trigger too.
There you go. Why do you think I'm wearing this purple jacket today, man? It's got to be a memorable conversation.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about some of the proud moments that you've had a Goode cybersecurity case study that you can share with us. Client that really, didn't understand what was going on. They got breached, and you guys came in and really helped them out.
Well, it's I think the proudest moments are the ones you would never hear about, to be very blunt. When part of it is to help someone when something bad has already happened. But to be frank, the much better approach is to be able to help someone to avoid such a situation. And so, we have a large number of customers of heavily regulated industries like banking. And we've gone in there, we've done some audits after they've had some less than stellar cybersecurity results for a number of different reasons. And there's some satisfaction in being able to solve that problem. But for the vast majority of our customers, we're really trying to engage with them before there's a quote unquote problem to solve, right? That education, training, and optimization piece. Yeah. And so it's almost like a good teacher, right? The good teachers that we have, we always take with us. Is there one specific thing that they taught you? It's not always related to the coursework. It's the life lessons they gave you. Sure. And so in our case, we're really trying to talk to business owners in a preventative capacity. That doesn't mean we can't be the emergency room when something happens, but we'd much rather be a regular physician having a conversation with you prior to those types of events.
Is it eye-opening to you when you're in this business, in this industry, in cybersecurity, to see how easy and how vulnerable some of these businesses are, Carl? A lot of times, man, it's incredible to me that you've got businesses that are, multi-million-dollar companies that are not protecting themselves, and you kind of wonder, it's really pretty simple to steal a lot of money from these places or really hurt them. And they're just not protected.
Well, so even when the information itself is protected very well, it's still easy to steal. There was a recent case where, we've all heard of deepfakes in terms of video, right? Your face is superimposed on a video and it looks decently real.
Right.
Well, now bad actors are starting to use basically voice synthesizers. So it sounds like the person that you expect to talk to. And just a couple days ago, someone called and they're a senior director of company XYZ, and they call somebody in accounting saying basically, look, we're going through an acquisition. We need to send $32 million to this account. That person's a good doobie. They do what they do and they transfer that money.
Wow.
Now, did they have all of the appropriate security tools in place? I think we could potentially argue yes, but what they didn't have in place was the training and observance piece that was necessary for that person to question that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of eye-opening moments, let's just put it that way. And every time we hear about something bad on the news or we read about it, we have to acknowledge these people have great technology, they have great people, chances are they have pretty good process too, but yet here they are, right, suffering from some massive outage or breach. And so what our job really is to help them optimize, in the vast majority of cases, what they already have to help them generate the results that they need without displacing current technology. Yeah. And having worked for a vendor, one of the challenges for end users is you're always told that the technology that you have needs to be replaced.
Right.
Well, the challenge then is I replace that technology. Now what do I need to do? I need to integrate it into my current environment. I need to train people on it. I need to make sure that it's going to work with all the other solutions. I need to have constant training. And so this constant cycle of upgrading products, which is certainly pushed and preferred by vendors, can in a lot of cases actually be really counterintuitive in terms of the experience and the protection that that end user will have if they're stuck with an existing platform and work with someone like us to really optimize what they already have.
Yeah. Do you have any statistics on how many breaches occur from within the organization versus outside the organization? A lot of times people think, oh, it's either a Russian hack, it's a Chinese hack, it's some foreign hack. But honestly, a lot of it come from inside?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the insider threat. And again, a lot of this boils down to what kind of information makes the headlines, right?
Yeah. If
Russia is pushing forth a cyber attack through a bunch of nefarious groups, we're going to hear about that. There's a lot of ransomware, et cetera, et cetera. What we're not going to hear about is an employee who was terminated and they didn't remove their account credentials, right? And so they had access to the network and they deleted a bunch of stuff or they stole a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And to be brutally honest, in a lot of our engagements, that's one of the first things we go look at, right? And it seems like such a very basic step. If Johnny hasn't worked here in 3 years, can we talk about, and the question isn't, hey, we need to remove Johnny. The type of questions we like to ask is, why is Johnny still here? Right? Because that has a more meaningful, longer answer. And the answer, quite frankly, is there's not a process, there's not a policy to make sure that Johnny is removed on the day that Johnny is terminated, or quite frankly, their access is removed in the morning if they're scheduled to be terminated in the afternoon.
Right.
And as technology continues to advance, there's really a push by the bad actors to recruit people inside target organizations, right? I would still consider that an insider threat.
Yep.
And we don't necessarily realize how much damage can be caused by a specific individual if we don't have technology and policy controls around what type of access they have, right?
Well said.
So if you work for a company with 10 people, you have different roles and responsibilities than you do if you work at a company with 10,000 people.
Right.
But if you go and audit that company with 10,000 people, you'll very quickly find there's a lot of people with permissions to do things within that landscape, which they, quite frankly, should not be allowed to do. And it was done because it was a shortcut at one period in time. It was accepted at one period in time. But that's why it's so important to acknowledge that cybersecurity, cyber resiliency, it's not a one and done. It's, we want to go in, we want to take a look, we want to know the state of the state, come up with an action plan. Mm-hmm. That's great. But now what we want to do is we want to continue to monitor, work, and adapt so that we're staying current. An IT audit, it's a requirement for a lot of businesses, and that's fantastic. But you should never be running your business to pass an audit. You should be running your business to be secure and profitable.
Yep. Exactly.
Profitable,
yep.
Certainly first in most cases, but security is more and more important.
Yep.
And as part of that process, the cybersecurity piece really is just hugely growing in importance, and a big part of that is segmenting users based on what they should be allowed to do. Yep. And then sometimes companies get very, very good at solving a specific problem.
Yeah, yeah.
But at one point we have to ask ourselves, what's the root cause? We might now have the best emergency room and be able to put everybody's fingers back on when they're sticking their hands in the lawnmower. But what we really should be focusing on is making sure that people aren't doing that in the first place.
Exactly.
Right. So
yeah, well said.
A lot of time people are very quick to want to solve the symptoms rather than get to the root cause.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
If I have a heart attack, yeah, we can take a bunch of pills, do this, that, and the other thing. But in reality, I got to get out. I got to exercise more. I got to eat better. I got to take better care of myself. And so we need to be able to ask the tough questions to get to the root cause.
Absolutely. Well said. We're going to have to take a quick break, Carl. When we come back, we'll talk to you more about maybe some advice you would give to a newcomer coming into the cybersecurity business and maybe some of these lessons that you've learned over the last few years in the business. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsors. Don't go away, folks.
I feel bad for kicking your seat on purpose.
I'm sorry for mansplaining. That's when a man...
I know what it is.
We should have just told you it's a boy.
I wish you didn't have to hear all that.
Sorry I called you Karen.
That's my name.
Sorry your name is Karen.
I promise I will not eat any more of your friends.
Really?
Okay, it might happen one more time.
Welcome back to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio, and I've got Carl Bjerke with me today. Carl's a Chief Revenue Officer at Goode Cyber Security. He's coming to us remotely from Charlotte, North Carolina. Carl, if you were to give someone advice who's coming, a newcomer, a newbie, coming into the cybersecurity world, not knowing a lot about it, maybe went to college for it, what advice would you give them at this point as they come into an ever-evolving business?
Yeah, sure. So two things, if I could. When I went to high school, the hardest class I ever took was art history, okay?
Yeah.
And the question everybody has, what is art history going to teach you about life? On the first day in that class, it was team taught by two teachers, and what they told us was, no matter how smart you are, no matter how hard you work, you will not be able to do all of the work that we assign in this class. Mm-hmm. The lesson you will truly learn here is how to prioritize. Mm-hmm. I get goosebumps thinking about it, it still sticks with me. And so I think for anyone, whether they're getting into cybersecurity or any other field, the first thing that I would always encourage people to do to help guide them down the path they ultimately want to go is define what success is to you. And I don't mean to sound cheesy about it, but for some people, we think of financial success, we want to judge people by the yardstick that we've created for ourselves. But that's not necessarily the same definition of success that everybody has. And so, whether your educational background is in cybersecurity or something else, okay, with this strong foundation, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a programmer? Do you want to be an analyst? Do you want to be customer facing? Do you want to make stacks and stacks of money? Or are you the type of person that takes tremendous satisfaction in helping people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really going to help define your path in terms of the types of companies that you go work for, the types of culture that you're going to be a fit for, and ultimately really going to be, the key in how you define your life. And, that's one of those things where I don't think people hear that lesson early enough in life, that it's okay for you to define success. It doesn't have to be what your parents told you it should be. If you just want to be the best dad that you can be, go for it. If you want to be the best welder that you can be, go for it. If you want to be the best cybersecurity analyst that you can be, go for it. But you really got to start off with that background of being true to yourself about what you want to do.
Yeah. It's good advice, Carl, too, because a lot of times with cybersecurity, like analogous to art history, there's no way that you're going to learn everything there is to learn about this business, because it's ever evolving, it's ever changing, it's so vast, it's so broad, and if you don't prioritize, you're going to be in deep trouble, right?
Exactly, and when we work with our clients, when we're wrapping up the initial analysis, That's great. We now, know the state of the state, but that only does so much. The next part of that engagement is helping customers prioritize, hey, what needs to be fixed? Where do we get the most value for our time and the most value for our money to make the most progress the quickest, right? And one example would be that I can spend 10 hours fixing 15 small little problems that were discovered. It doesn't necessarily cost me a lot of money. It's really low-hanging fruit. Let's go do that. And then let's take some of the money that's left over, because we're not going to displace that whatever endpoint security solution or whatever it might be, and put that pool of effort and money into solving, quite frankly, a critical problem that's bigger on the list. But sometimes we can't be afraid to acknowledge that there's small problems we can fix right away too.
Yeah.
And so it's really a big part of our job is helping people that don't work in technology understand what they need to do to minimize their exposure. And sometimes it's not technology at all. Sometimes it's process, sometimes it's people.
Yeah, listen, over the last couple of years, the game has changed a little bit with regard to employees and employers. I mean, you could have really picked, at this point in your career, you could have picked anyone, right? You could have gone pretty much anywhere you wanted. Why'd you pick them? Why'd you pick Goode Cyber Security?
So like so many things, it really boils down to being a fit where you work, right? And one of the things that I really was important to me when I was looking for a job was to work with people that have a similar strong moral compass, right? I think a lot of people in their professional careers, they end up in situations where everybody knows what the right thing to do is, yet for unknown reasons it's not done, right? The problem or the solution gets their own momentum. And so for me, it was really, really important to work with a company. We work in a serious business, and that doesn't mean mistakes don't happen.
Right.
But a big part of growing as a company, growing as individuals, everybody makes mistakes, but how many people actually acknowledge them and take corrective action?
Sure.
Right? And the answer is very, very, very few. Everybody's very quick to pass the buck.
Yep.
And so working with Michael, he's been doing IT audits and cybersecurity for more than 20 years, so he comes with a really, really strong bank of experience. But that moral compass is so strong pointing north that we do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Well, I love it. So think back on your career for a minute, Carl. Just let's go back a few years back and think about your path. What would you have done differently if you knew what you knew now? I mean, would you have changed anything at all?
So, I mean, the answer is, of course. We all want to pretend that we wouldn't change a thing. I think the number one thing to kind of acknowledge early on in your career is, there's a lot of, I fall into this personality type, and when I see a problem, I want to fix it. Is that my responsibility? Maybe yes, maybe no. If the answer is no, that's somebody else's responsibility. And at points in my career, I found myself focused on doing my job, but really wanting to better the entire organization. But if you're not working for the right company, that's not always appreciated, right? Somebody feels like you're trying to do their job for them.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, when you're, if I was talking to my younger self, it's irrespective of the technology. If you feel in your gut that this is not the place you should be, go now, don't wait.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's as employers, we want to. The saying goes, hire slow, fire fast. Well, that same thing goes true if you're an employee. Sometimes we make mistakes in the places that we work. That's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. You don't have to wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to figure that out, because you knew on day two. And so I think what it really boils down to is be true to yourself, and don't be afraid to make the hard decisions. Nobody's going to make them for you, right? I think we all have people in our lives that are not happy in their jobs. Okay, well, there's smart people that have options too, but they never exercise them. They didn't see their true worth.
Yeah. What do you see going forward? What's the future look like for not only Goode Cyber Security, but the world of cybersecurity generally, Carl? I mean, it's ever changing. We're under constant threat, whether it's domestically or internationally. And, I could see the business growing geometrically, but where do you see it going? Where do you see Goode Cyber Security going and the rest of the market?
Yeah, so I think just in terms of the macro question, before we get to the good piece, the consequences are growing dramatically when we think about true nation states creating true cyber weapons, right? And so many, many, many years ago, there was the first real cyber weapon that was created was called Stuxnet, and it was specifically targeted a bunch of a nuclear facility in Iran to basically make a bunch of parts blow up. That's the real deal. Now, when we go look at modern warfare systems, are any of those analog? No.
Right.
Do all of those systems only carry components that have been produced domestically? No.
No.
We might be upset that we can't buy a new Ford F-150 because we don't have chips for
Right.
it.
Exactly.
But we really should be thinking about the much bigger consequences. That's an inconvenience. But there's always someone looking to fill that void. And especially when we look at true technology players, there's nothing to stop someone who is motivated enough to be able to get in at a very, very low level in the production chain that would have a dramatic impact on all our lives.
man.
So that's not intended as a scare tactic. It's just kind of acknowledging that what used to be an inconvenience can now be truly destructive from a physical sense.
Yep.
When we think about our power grid, we think about our water management, all of these systems are computer controlled.
Yep.
And there's always a way, if someone has enough money, enough time, and enough resources, to figure out a way to breach those systems.
Yep, for sure.
Nuclear power plant is no different,
Yep.
right? And so it's really important that those things be air-gapped, et cetera, but smart people are trying to think of ways around that too.
Yep.
But in terms of the micro picture, in terms of good cybersecurity,
Yep.
We're really focused on educating executives and giving that second opinion. And the way that I think of it is, if you've ever been to the doctor, you sign up, you go in for your physical, and it costs you $200. Well, if the doctor sees something on your x-ray, one of the first things that he says is, hey, look, we should get a second opinion here to make sure that we're reading this information right. And based on that, maybe there's a course of action, maybe not, but I'm not comfortable making that decision.
Right.
And so IT working for a company, they're that general practitioner, they're where you're going first. But when they see something, it is their responsibility, and quite frankly, the executives need to take some ownership here too, in terms of creating that culture where it's okay for someone to raise their hand and say, look, we found something, we don't necessarily have the competence to understand it all, which they can't, because a lot of IT people are generalists. And so in terms of good cybersecurity, I think the market for expertise outside of just technology replacement and displacement is only going to grow. Yeah. And so I'm very, very optimistic in terms of our path at this point. We've brought on a couple new people in the last month or so, and we're still aggressively looking for people. And so, for better or worse, cybersecurity is a great space to be in, but we need to think of it as more than technology, and that's what we do.
Awesome. Carl, this has been great. I really have appreciated you and your insight. Great interview. Let's tell everybody how to get in touch with you and Goode Cyber Security, please.
Sure. So, if you want to give me a call, I'm not opposed to that. My telephone number is 603-233-0213. We're on LinkedIn. Just search for Goode Cyber Security, and we certainly have a webpage too, which is goodesecurity.com.
Awesome.
Good with an E.
Good. Great. Carl, it's been terrific. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time today, and good luck. We'll stay in touch. Absolutely. We'll connect on LinkedIn and get the word out on Goode Cyber Security, folks. Good lessons today, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap for Rainmakers Roundup. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to look up Goode Cyber Security and Carl Bjerke. He's the Chief Revenue Officer there. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We'll see you next time.